Okay, Pilarium, level with me. What are the chances we're going to get a CatHerder in the game? Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends. We are here on my main account because I have the doggo built. I have pulled him. I have built him. I have Shayak in this account. So we are going to take a look at the dog and his master, the Packmaster, and how the combination works together. We'll certainly experiment a little bit with how the doggo does by himself as well. I've got a Hydra team built out specifically for the dog. I also can run a comparison team with my Thor versus the doggo without the Packmaster, and we'll compare those as well just to see how he is if you don't have Shayak. Honestly, this dog looks pretty incredible in some of the testing I have been doing so far, and I've honestly got a bit of a compromise build. So let's go take a look at the dog. We'll actually briefly talk about Shayak as well, and we can certainly talk about builds and other stuff as well. So, all right. First of all, we have a puppy. Isn't he cute? Oh yeah, look at you. You are so cute. Yes, you are. It's kind of interesting that the camera doesn't quite know what to do. So you can see that it's got the distance, you know, fogging or whatever else obscuring that's happened there until you rotate him and see him. But honestly, they did a really, really good job. He's got the orc aesthetic to him. He's got the armored dog aesthetic to him. He is a hunkering beast. He looks huge, but just because he is super, super zoomed in. If I go to another champion, for example, you'll see here we're not so zoomed in and everything else shrinks a little bit too. So nice and zoomed in here, and he is so cute. Oh, you a good boy. Who's a good boy? Yeah. So he, Kro'khad the Throatripper is so good. He's got a really, really cool kit, definitely pairs with the Packmaster, but honestly, he doesn't need to. He's actually pretty solid in and of itself. I actually did get him on my free to play as well, although I have not pulled him there yet, but I expect when I have a chance to build him, he will be a very helpful Hydra damage dealer there as well. And we'll certainly test him out without Shayak on this account here as well. So first of all, the A1 attacks all enemies, deals single target damage to each target individually rather than AoE damage. That is critical because the Hydra has several AoE damage dealing reducers, particularly the head of, I think it's Suffering, I think is the right one that does that. Whichever the super tanky one is, I think that's Suffering. He also ignores reflect damage, which means he's not going to instantly kill himself by doing this damage with the AoE. Ally protection, which means he's going to ignore the ally protection, so he's going to do full damage. And pain link, so he's not going to kill somebody else with the pain link instead. He also deals double damage when counterattacking if Packmaster Shayak is on the team. That's important because he will counterattack if Shayak is attacked, so that's where that becomes a very, very key detail to this dog's kit. So he's got an A2 here, 4-turn, bookable to a 3-turn cooldown, 100% chance eventually to land Leech and Weaken, places an extra hit if enemies are under 2 or more debuffs. But the first hit places the Leech and the Weaken, and then he will do the second hit afterwards. So he'll actually get advantage of the Weaken after the second hit, and he can basically cause himself to get that second hit on everybody, which is great. The debuffs cannot be resisted if Packmaster Shayak is on the team as well. He can, however, weak hit, so the second hit, however, should make it so that hopefully he can maybe land both of these, the second hit. I'm not sure. I haven't actually tested that part of it out yet. But honestly, getting 2 or more debuffs is usually not a problem, but the fact that he does it himself on this makes it such a good ability. Leech is so great for keeping everyone alive. It means you need less healing overall. Doesn't mean you need no healing, because honestly, there's enough damage that can be done on Hydra if you're not careful that you can still need to have some healing. But Leech mitigates a lot of the healing you need, so you can lean a little more into the offense, which is a great way to have it. And then Weaken is just a great debuff to have. Means you could certainly pair him with just a standard decreased defense champion if that's all you needed, or if that's all you had. For example, he might pair great with like a Michinaki, for example, who does damage as well as puts the decreased defense up. A lot of other champions would actually work really well with him. Plus, there are other champions that work well with the Leech as well. If you happen to have Bells actually does extra damage to people under Leech and does extra attacks to people under Leech as well. He puts his own Leech up as well, and he's also a block buff champion, so the synergy is not quite great because block buffs is something that Shayak will do as well, but Bells can be an interesting combination with him and the orcs. And I kind of like the fact that some of these champions combine with other champions in their faction to do really cool things and bring out the power of other champions. So that's kind of cool. Packmaster Shayak, of course, irresistible if you got him, which is great. So you don't need accuracy. I would probably build him with some accuracy anyway, because it's not hard to get too much accuracy on him, but we'll certainly see. And in fact, I don't think I built mine with a lot of accuracy because I think all the places I'm going to use him are going to have Shayak with him. But well, we'll get to that part later. Finally, he's got a single target, attacks one enemy, ignores 50% of the target's defense, as well as life barrier and poison cloud. So he will not automatically weak hit because of poison cloud, and he'll basically ignore the shield life barrier, which is super great. He ignores effects that redirect attacks. So basically UDK he ignores, but he'll also ignore the mischief head's ability to redirect. And then finally he'll do a second hit if Packmaster Shayak is on the team. And this thing should absolutely nuke, which hopefully means that somebody gets eaten. Well, we'll talk about that part later. Because that's where this passive comes in. Increases the champion's attack by 5% when killing an enemy or decapitating a Hydra head. So he gets 25% extra attack. It can increase to 50% if Shayak is on the team as well. So he can ramp up his damage over time, which is always great. He also instantly acts the dominant predator skill, this one here, if a head devours an ally. So basically, and Shayak is on the team. So this only happens if Shayak is on the team, but if Shayak is on the team, he will do a double hit ignoring 50% defense instantly on whoever devours somebody, which basically should mean instant freedom for just about everybody as long as he's not the one being devoured. It also means if you have two of these dudes, you'll get double the hits and you're guaranteed to free whichever doggo gets eaten. So running a double Kro'khad team with the Packmaster should be kind of fun, actually. In fact, I know a clan member of mine on the free-to-play account. He pulled the Kro'khad early on, finished the thing at my suggestion, and he's going to be loving this double doggo damage team. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. So that is Kro'khad in a nutshell. He does have a 30% aura attack in all battles. That is always great to bring to the table for a lot of areas of the game. 30% is great. It's one of the better attack auras you're going to get. All areas is absolutely great as well. So yeah, he's got a very usable aura for where you might want to use him in the game, and he's going to find a use in a lot of areas of the game with the Packmaster. So of course, we do have to cover the Packmaster here quickly. Packmaster, again, very cool looking champion. One of the cooler looking orcs, I think, too, actually. Very good champion. I mean, he was an okay champion. He's now a very good champion with Kro'khad, and without Kro'khad, he's still an okay champion. He's got the A1 here, decreased defense, certainly nice. Teams up with an ally attack of all the dogs, basically, when he uses the A1. That's, again, where Kro'khad's going to certainly see a lot more use of his A1, which is going to absolutely murderize the enemy. Got here the A2, removes all debuffs from this champion, heals them by 50% of their max HP, and then puts a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns. Shield is equal to surplus heal, cannot be removed or stolen if there's a hound on the team, and puts a taunt and a reflect damage on himself for 2 turns, and that is irremovable or protected if the other hounds are on the team as well. So this is very good. I actually have a video on it. It doesn't work anymore because they nerfed how taunt works in Hydra. But taunt used to be used. You would build Shayak super slow, figure out a way to reset him by 1 turn, and he would keep the taunt up indefinitely and no one would ever get eaten. And it was kind of cool. But even then, with taunt, he's going to get hit a lot, especially on wave-based content. Now, bosses don't get affected by taunt quite the same way, so it's not as big of a deal. But this means that he is going to be the subject of a lot of the mischief focus, which means you want to build him with some resistance because he's putting 3 buffs on himself that nobody else is getting. That makes him an amazing mischief target, which is absolutely a great way to build him. And then finally, he's got a turn meter fill for all allies by 25%, which is pretty massive, and places an 80% block buffs on everyone, and that cannot be resisted if Terror Beast if any of the hounds are with him as well. Now this is not an attack, so it is a place, which is kind of nice because it will place itself underneath the poison cloud if you need it to. The big problem I have with that not being an attack is because he only attacks with one of the skills, he doesn't need a lot of damage, so he's not going to do a lot of damage, which is a little unfortunate, but it does mean that if you're struggling to get the accuracy or the resistance you need, you could forego the offense tree because honestly, he's only attacking with one of his abilities. Other thing that makes him kind of cool is when attacked, places a hex debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Ally attacks under the hex debuff placed by this champion deal 20% more damage. And basically when he's attacked by a hound, the hounds will then counterattack as well, which is again the counterattack passive for Kro'khad, doing double damage. Is amazing. Now it's only about 150% of his normal attack damage because the counterattacks generally only do 75%, so his double going to be 150%. And finally, he's got a speed aura in all battles by 19%. So Packmaster, Shayak, you know, good support to go with Kro'khad. His kit's okay, but with Kro'khad, he should prove to be absolutely amazing because the one thing he doesn't do is do a lot of attacking, and Kro'khad will certainly do that for you. So first off, I always like to look at the masteries of the champions I build and talk about different options for you as well. Now, I went down the support tree because I wanted him to get the extra 30% speed turn meter boost from this when the stuff falls off, because they cannot be resisted, but they can expire, be removed, or just fall off for whatever reason. So that is extra turn meter for the doggo to get extra turns, which I felt was a worthwhile benefit. And then Master Hexer gives you a chance to extend those, which again is another benefit worthwhile as well. I did give him Lore of Steel because I've got him in Merciless gear, but Lore of Steel is actually really great anyway, because if you end up with like him in some pinpoint gear or some precision gear or something like that, something that gives him extra stats, he's going to get extra stats from the Lore of Steel as well. I wouldn't necessarily mind Cycle of Magic, but he doesn't need it. It's nice to get back to his skills a little bit faster, but it's not a huge problem. You know, and you could certainly go with Swarm Smiter if you want the extra accuracy over the Arcane Celerity. This was built in case I needed the accuracy, and to be fair, I don't think I have him with a lot of accuracy because I assume he's going to be with a Packmaster all the time, at least the way I've got him built at the moment. And that is worth noting for some of the testing I'm going to be doing later on as well, that he does not have an odd of accuracy. But overall, you know, he's still very good here. But if you decide you don't want some of these extra things like this extra turn meter here and this extra you know, chance to get a longer lasting debuff and a little bit of extra stats here, then you're going to go down the tough skin, give him a little extra defense. You're going to want to go blast proof. You're going to go resurgent most likely. And then delay death is a great skill for long battles because that basically reduces the amount of damage he takes by 6% eventually. And then probably give him this retribution where he gets the counterattack. And, you know, that'll be very helpful as well. I think that is better than maybe Cycle of Revenge for PvE content. Cycle of Revenge is a much better PvP skill where that turn meter gets him when an ally is critically hit, but generally Hydra is not going to be critically hitting you that often, so you're better off with a chance to counterattack because he is a little bit squishy. So as far as the offense is concerned, definitely went with the increased crit rate and the increased crit damage here. I decided to go with Heart of Glory because, you know, most of the time I'm hoping he's going to be mostly full with HP, so that'll keep him full and that'll give a little extra damage. If you think he's going to be mostly below half, you could go with Grim Resolve. I don't think that Shield Breaker is really going to do much in most content right here, so I probably would ignore Shield Breaker. The next row down is definitely going to depend on where you want to use him. For Hydra, he's actually probably better with Single Out and Life Drinker, but because I thought he also might be kind of fun on the waves in some of the Faction Wars Hard, Whirlwind of Death is a great way to speed up champions quite a bit more once they're killing people, so I've decided to go with Whirlwind of Death. Cycle of Violence means you can reset some of those skills that are going to be landing debuffs. That's definitely helpful, and he's going to hit hard enough to exceed 30% of a target's max HP at a turn. Get a chance to get this trigger occasionally. Bring It Down is an easy one to grab. That's really the best one on this particular row. If you think a bunch of other people are going to be dead, then that could be interesting for you. This could be good if you're going to be in arena and going to have a lot of control going on, but probably not the best one overall for most PvE content. Here down in Methodical, especially because his A1 is going to be hitting an awful lot. Extra damage on the A1 is huge, so Methodical is a great one. And we're going to be killing people whenever possible, so kill streak's going to be good. This doesn't help as much in Hydra, unfortunately, which is something I think they should fix. I really think they should fix that Hydra heads count as a kill for triggering things like this, because why not? You've already got the mastery. It doesn't make any sense not to affect that. And then Helm Smasher, you know, Helm Smasher, very good overall if you're going to be ignoring defense, which we are going to be ignoring defense. You already have one skill that ignores 50% defense. Might as well make that 75%, possibly more than that if we've got the right gear. So those are the masteries I would recommend. If you're building him for a very early game account where you can't get him in something that will ignore defense, then War Master is probably the way to go for damage because he's going to be doing a lot of AoE attacking. And so you might as well get those War Master procs on Hydra regularly, but that is going to be a Hydra only build at that point in time, whereas War Master is going to prove more better for the most part, even on wave content, even without a lot of the ignore defense that you might have stacked otherwise. And it's also going to make that ignore 50% possibly nuke that much harder whenever you get that to proc. Now, I did happen to pick up a 1-star soul for him in the shop just because I was not sure what kind of events we were going to have to get a soul, and I figured I have turned down a chance to get a 1-star soul on a new champion before and regretted it, so I decided to spend the 20 essence effectively and get this 1-star soul. Nature's Wrath is what I went with because that is extra damage for debuffs that they are placing up to 6%. He'll get those debuffs out pretty quickly, especially when he's paired with Shayak, and then suddenly he's doing 6% more damage constantly. You certainly could argue that Heaven Cast could be a little bit better, but again, that's only going to tap out at 5% if you get him under 10 debuffs, and that's only, or 10 buffs, I should say, and it's only going to work while he's under those buffs. So I really do think that Nature's Wrath is much better than Heaven Cast if you can manage to swing it. If you've got a 6-star Blessing, Crushing Rend is going to absolutely murderize people. And in fact, Crushing Rend could be good enough that you may not have to build him in Ignore Defense gear for Hydra. And that would be good for a lot of the PvE stuff you're going to do. If you're going to be PvE, then, you know, that's, well, if you're going to do PvP with Kro'khad, Crushing Rend is not going to be as effective as some of the other stuff you might do. Nature's Wrath is probably going to prove to continue to be better under PvP circumstances. And of course, there's other options as well, which we'll talk about there. If you don't have a lot of champions with Brimstone, he's going to have enough accuracy to land debuffs if you don't have the Packmaster. So Brimstone never sucks on a lot of champions, although I prefer it on single target champions so I can choose where Brimstone goes. But you know, you get Brimstone out, they can add some damage to you. It's a good early mid-game progression one. It's a good ability. Soul Reap could certainly be good if you're going to use them in Arena. Also, not a bad one for wave clearing because that means you might occasionally just kill a bunch of people with Soul Reap on the waves. You know, Cruelty, maybe. If you're really short on champions with Cruelty, this will decrease the defense of everybody up to 10% for other champions, 5% for bosses. Can be helpful if you don't have anybody else with it, but usually I recommend supports with this one. It makes more sense. Phantom Touch could do some extra damage, especially if you can get the 6-star version of this one, but honestly, if you're going 6-star, you're going Crushing Rend for most things. So yeah, that's kind of where I would be at with him. You could argue Lightning Cage if you're going to put him in Stone Skin for any Arena build, but you know, seriously, Nature's Wrath into Crushing Rend are probably your best options as far as the blessings are concerned. So I've got the Talon on him, the Malefic Talon. This one happens to be a plus 12. Believe it or not, this was just laying around on my account. I suspect I removed this from somebody while changing to something else with them for some other build and just never put it on another champion. So he's got a bunch of extra crit damage, which is very helpful in doing damage, so it makes some sense. This is a good one for him, but honestly, any of them that are going to add additional damage to him are going to be good. So the Cat's Gaze is going to be helpful for him. You could certainly say the Coronet could be a good option for him as well. That's going to stack similar to how Nature's Wrath is going to stack. Particularly this one's going to be a 3% damage increase per time up to 30%. So that's going to be overall 30% more damage. In this case here, I've got 26% more crit damage out of him. The attack and accuracy, it's kind of a hit or miss which one you want on that one. So, but honestly, any of these things that are going to give you more damage, more attack, certainly not that one there. Header's Reserve is not going to be particularly great for him. You know, it's kind of, you're going to be looking at a couple things, you know, receives less damage. You know, if you're worried about him dying, you could certainly do something that's tanky as well. But honestly, anything that deals additional damage is going to be good for him. I really think the Talon or the Cat's Gaze or the Coronet are probably the best three that I can think of at the moment, but anything that gives him extra attack percent or attack or crit damage and adds extra damage to what he does are going to be effective in what Kro'khad is all about. So let's talk about gearing Kro'khad and giving some options for you. I have him in 9-piece Merciless right here, so this gives me a 15% chance of getting an extra turn, 35% ignore defense, a bunch of extra crit damage, attack, and speed, as well as a chance to decrease a random skill cooldown by 1 turn when dealing damage. So he is going to reset his skills regularly. He's going to get extra turns occasionally. He is going to do a crap load of damage. And Merciless, these benefits are so huge, it's worth giving up on some stats for. And I've certainly given up a little bit of stats for here. Like I've only got a 5-star crit damage amulet on here. I have not gotten a particularly good ascension on these gloves right here, for example. I certainly would have liked him to have been a bit faster, or maybe have gotten attack percent boots on him. But I can get attack percent boots on him, but that gets him his speed down to just over 200. In fact, it's under 200. And that was just too slow for my taste, given what else I'm doing with him. If I can get those attack percent boots on him, well, I'm not going to turn down an extra 800-ish attack. That would be kind of cool. And because he does a lot of stuff with Shayak and counterattacking, that extra attack and giving up a little bit of speed may not actually be a bad idea. But generally, I don't want him below 200 speed. And I do think that if he's too slow, he's going to struggle in Faction Wars hard content, which is one of the places I do want to use him. As you can see here, we've got the 285% crit damage. I can get this up to like 305 when I get the right ascensions on other pieces of gear. I can certainly get him some more speed. As I said, I've got 5-star speed boots here that have gotten a bad ascension right here. Not everything here is ascended, although I do have a lot of this stuff rolled up and glyphed up in some extent. He's actually in several pieces. Wow, I'm actually in 4 pieces, 5, 6, 7 pieces of 5-star Merciless gear. That's how important Merciless gear can be. And this is just, I've got, but at least it's an attack banner. And it is attack ring that got attack percent hits on here as well. And it's a crit damage amulet. Again, you're going to want to maximize his crit damage and his crit rate. So we got crit damage gloves here. If you cannot get him in crit damage gloves, go with crit rate gloves and then max him out the crit damage substats instead. You're going to want the speed. You'll also notice that his accuracy is a little low. So if I show you his total stats here, resistance, not too bad, but we don't need the resistance. That's actually not going to be very helpful. And the 144 accuracy, he is going to need the Packmaster to land his debuffs, which is very unfortunate. But you know what? It's going to be fine because I'm going to be running with Packmaster an awful lot. That does mean that he's not going to scale quite as well when I run him without Packmaster. So we'll certainly have to make sure we are aware of that for testing, particularly with the Nature's Blessing. But between having, if I go into my Hydra battles here, go to Hydra battles here, suddenly I am at 176 accuracy. Better, not great, but that means at least on Brutal, which is where I'm going to be running some testing, he's got a chance to land some of these things, even if it's not a great chance. So that is going to be, better than nothing. And, and that's always something worthwhile thinking about too, is how can you maximize your champion with these area bonuses as well. So for Hydra, as you can see, I've got my speed maxed out, I've got my crit rate maxed out, I've got my ignore defense maxed out, and those help my damage a ton. And the rest of the stuff is just bonus extra stats. I'd certainly like to get more attack, I'd like to get more HP, I'd like to get more defense. Right now I've got the 10%, certainly wouldn't mind 20%. That's just a bunch of extra stats, would be very helpful. And the blessings are also a ton of extra stats as well. We're going to be comparing them against my Thor. My Thor has a 5-star blessing, so he's going to get some extra stats from that, so keep that in mind as well. But I will say the 1-star blessing turns him from one of the squishiest champions I'm going to have on my account at 35k to a total of 43k HP here. That is going to be huge for keeping him alive, which is going to help for not needing to revive him in Hydra as well. All right, so we're going to go take him into Doom Tower for some damage testing with and without Shayak, and then we'll take him into Hydra and maybe some other places as well. All right, so first of all, we're going to start him off with just with Arbiter and Lydia. Arbiter is going to give him the increased attack. He does not self-buff himself. And then Lydia is going to boot the decreased defense and weaken up. She also does have the feral gear on, so she's going to add some extra damage, but she's had that on for every test I've been running lately, so that for damage comparison shouldn't be a big deal. So we are going to start off with his single target A3 here. So this ignores 50% defense and will only single hit in this particular form here. And that was 291k. That is absolutely huge. And he will double hit if Shayak is on the team. So that is pretty cool. He's, going to be ignoring defense too. He's ignoring 85% defense on that without Helm Smasher proccing. And that shows you the power of ignore defense, of how good that is. So let's get the extra increased attack and get the decreased defense and stuff up here. Now we're going to go with the A2 here. Now, again, this is not going to have scaled up because he's not going to have the extra 6% from Nature's Wrath. These are also not irresistible, so these are probably not going to land, or at least not land well. We'll certainly see they might land against the two positive affinity stuff here. Slow this down to 1x and let's see that damage. Pretty good damage. He was doing 150-ish K there with that attack, and he wiped out the entire wave. Again, this is, hard 1. So we're not talking about a particularly high level of Doom Tower here, but that was a ton of damage on that A2. So that is a great source of damage. Let's check out the A1 as well, see how he does on the A1. And just to check, that's right, he puts a second hit up too. So the fact that that was a single hit and he was going to double hit in that case meant he would have been doing over 300,000 damage on some of these champions, which is just absolutely insane. All right, so we got the A1 here. This is not going to do any double hit. We're not doing any extra damage because we're not doing anything else weird. That's only going to happen on Shyak counterattacks. So let's see the A1 damage. 100 to 120k on an A1 AoE per attack. Now, we did not wipe out the entire wave, but hey, look, we actually got the extra turn as well because of the Merciless gear, which is absolutely amazing. So we'll just finish this up as well. That is a ton of damage that he's doing with an A1, which is just absolutely nuts. And he was going to counter attack with that as well with Shyak. So he's doing some really, really good damage. With the big damage A1, you could certainly use him in campaign farming. He'd be kind of an interesting campaign farmer. Yeah, he's just going to out-nuke everything. I mean, he could probably be a Nightmare campaign farmer. In fact, let's go run him through Nightmare campaign once just to see how that works. All right, so we got Kro'khad here. We are at 12-6 Nightmare. If you're farming Nightmare, you want to be farming 12-6. So I've got some food here, and let's run him through here. I'll even do a double because I'm sure he's going to get through without a problem. Yep, there is the first AoE. He's landing all his debuffs, and yep, not the fastest run you're going to do, but that AoE is nice, and he's going to survive enough attacks to be able to just kind of maul through Nightmare campaign. 12-second Nightmare campaign. I've seen faster. In fact, I think Thor does it in 6 seconds, which is where my best time is. So, is he the best campaign farmer in the world? No, but at 12 seconds, are you really going to complain about a Nightmare campaign farmer? No, he's absolutely amazing. All right, so this is my doggo team here. We've got Shyak in the lead, but honestly, I've got a couple different speed leads I could use instead of Shyak, but it works either way. Nekmo and Shyak are the same speed. We've got Shyak here. He's got, of course, the block buffs, which I want to prioritize. Then I want him to get the taunt and the reflect damage up. I did actually put him, as you can see, I've got him with some good resistance and some good accuracy. These are my Hydra stats, however, too, so that certainly helps. So he is going to be a mischief tank and hopefully be resisting all of these things. For hard, this is enough resistance. For brutal, this is enough resistance. For nightmare, I probably want about 20 more, 30 more resistance here. But overall, this should be effective in what we're looking for. Plenty of accuracy. Speed is very good because we want him going somewhat regularly to keep up that block buffs, because block buffs is super important. I did put him in cursed gear as well, and to be fair, I put him in cursed gear because I thought this was an attack and I forgot that this was just a place. So cursed gear is really not needed on him. You just need enough accuracy and enough stats to do what you want him to do, and then he'll get the decreased defense occasionally. To be fair, because of his passive with this hex that he places that does extra damage, and when champions attack, they counterattack, this extra damage on hex he places means that him being able to place a hex, possibly even with the A1, gives you a chance to get a little extra damage. So it's not the worst thing to have him in cursed gear, but it's probably not necessarily the greatest thing either if you can get better stats. I happen to have a good cursed gear lying around. I did have to take it off of one champion that I'm not really using much anymore, but that was effective enough for me. Again, we see the Kro'khad build here. here. I am prioritizing this AoE with the Leech and the Weaken because I think keeping those out will be more important. This is obviously the big single target nuke, and then of course he's got the A1, but this is going to be doing a lot of the overall AoE damage that I think is going to rack up on this thing. Because as we looked in the damage testing at least, so he's going to repeat this attack with the Packmaster, so he's going to double hit with this. As we saw in the damage without the Packmaster at least, he was doing 300k against a target that he was then doing 150k with the Festering Jaw. Well, that's great, you know, obviously this is double damage, but with 4 other champions out there, or 4 other heads out there, this is going to hit all 4 of them, basically doing more damage overall in theory, which I think is better. Plus it keeps the Leech and the Weaken up, which is going to be helpful for everyone else surviving. This is my Relentless Venus. Generally, I don't have to do anything for her. The pure partner is not going to be available because we don't have Cupidus on the team. So she will generally bring decreased defense and weaken if decreased defense and weaken can be brought. Otherwise, she will default to doing the burns. And in Relentless, she's going to get a chance to keep these things up pretty regularly, which is going to be very, very helpful overall. We've got Padraig here. Padraig brings a little bit of healing with his continuous heals with the ally attack. Since Kro'khad's got a really hard hitting A1, the ally attack should be very helpful overall in the damage we're going to bring. Plus the fact that Shayak has a chance to put that hex up first will be very good. Continuous heal is going to keep everyone alive. And then meanwhile, he's got a turn meter boost with increased speed, keeps everyone moving as well. Necmo Thar, he is in Provoke gear. I love my Necmos in Provoke. And then he's going to have the turn meter increase and increased speed. A little redundant with Padraig, but Padraig was the ally attacker I had available for this team. We've got the Planar Chains, which is going to be a decreased speed and leech. So we've already got the leech, but having more leech never hurts. Decreased speed is always nice to have on Hydra. And then he's got decreased attack on the A1. And since all of these are AoEs, with him in Provoke gear, we should keep the Provokes open pretty well, especially because Padraig's counterattack or ally attack is going to be helpful for here as well. And to be fair, if I was not to have Padraig in this team, I would probably bring my Cardiel instead, who would, instead of bringing the increased speed and turn meter boost, would instead bring a cleanse with block debuffs, which would certainly be very helpful. So it's probably not a bad option. Either one of them will work. He brings some healing as well with his A1 for Cardiel, and also brings the ally attack, which is kind of nice as well. Might bring some additional damage, but we're going to run the Padraig team for now and see how that works. And Duchess is here mostly to keep the fears off, as well as to bring them a revive in case I need a revive, because Kro'khad is a little squishy, so we want to make sure that everyone stays alive for the run. So we're going to go into the battle. I could certainly run this in quick battle, but we're going to go into the auto right here and just see how this runs. And we'll run this for a little bit just to see some of the damage the puppy does. And we've got almost all of our buffs up. Kro'khad doing a good, 150k damage per attack on that AoE. So far, so good. Now that we got some attacking going on, there we go. That's from counterattack damage. So as people start to attack Shayak and start doing things to Shayak, we're going to slowly but surely, wow, he just absolutely nuked that head, and he got an extra turn and did his A1. Absolutely insane. Doggo racking out the damage already. This is just absolutely nuts. And of course, he's got the fear procking occasionally, which is annoying. So maybe I should put a Shamail in here if I have enough other healing, but I kind of like having Duchess in for the revive just in case something happens with the doggo, because you never know. It's better safe than sorry. But just look at all of this. Packmaster does his A1, gets a bunch of extra people joining in. And Packmaster is going to get some hex out occasionally with being hit. He's going to generally be the mischief tank most of the time, which is great. And we're just going to get a ton of damage out of the doggo because he's going to keep on taking turns, keep on doing damage, and he hits really, really hard. So we are almost at the 1 key for this, and we are at boss turn count 8. Just how insanely nuts the puppy is. This is great. I love this. This is exactly what you're looking for in a damage dealer. Just constant damage. And I'm not going to say this team is super accessible. This is an endgame team, definitely an endgame team. But it's nice to see this kind of damage consistently done by a champion without having to rely on manualing the team or running other gimmicks. He is a very auto-friendly champion to do damage, which I know a lot of people do appreciate about Hydra and about the doggo and specifically. And so now we've actually 1 keyed as well. So let's regroup his here and go back and take a look at the some options. We'll run a quick battle of this as well. So I thought about bringing the damage test with Packmaster Shayak, but I realized that Packmaster Shayak is only going to make the debuffs irresistible, which means he might do just a little bit more damage with Nature's Wrath, but that's not super exciting. He double hits with his single target nuke, but his single target nuke is killing everybody on the first hit anyway, so you're not going to see the double damage there, and you can kind of imagine it because it doesn't scale the damage anymore. And the A1 only does extra damage if it's a counterattack. So it didn't make any sense to bring him specifically in with the Packmaster for a damage test. That said, you could certainly bring the Packmaster in and use that taunt to basically force everyone to attack the Packmaster, and the dog is just going to annihilate the waves. You know, in fact, let's do that and just kind of see how that works. So get the doggo first. We'll do Shayak in here. And let's just, you know, see how this goes through the waves, just the two of them. I'm kind of curious on this one. So put that on auto. Doggo A1, bringing some damage. Counterattacking, bringing some more damage. Doggo killing. See? Just the two of these guys combined, you're knocking things out. Now, the fear is certainly going to slow him down a little bit with the ally attack, but hey, every time the fear triggers, it goes away. So you're getting rid of that fear before you get a chance to take your actual turn, which can be actually very helpful for you as well. And there we go. Just 30, you know, 36 seconds, 14 turns, my way through a floor on hard. And I could certainly build a few more players in this team to keep everyone else alive, or maybe bring decreased defense occasionally. But the fact that these two can make their way through a full wave is kind of cool. So we're going to run a quick damage test comparison between Thor and the Packmaster. Thor and the doggo, so Kro'khad. We are going to use this team here. So this is my Cursed set Venus. I actually do have two Venuses. I have them both built out. I use both of them in Hydra. Venus is such a good champion. We've got my Cardiel here. We've got Wallmaster bringing the block buffs. We've got the Provoke here. We've got Shamail dealing with fear. I've got Revive on Death plus a backup revive here if I need it with Molly as well. And of course, Thor brings a ton of damage, as does the Packmaster, not the Packmaster, but the Wallmaster as well. Wrong master. So we'll do a quick battle here and just see how this runs. All right, so that is 339 damage overall with this team. Very solid team. Thorian bringing, 93,000 damage here. Thor bringing 141, that's a million, I should say. So 93 million and 141 million for Thor. Good numbers for Thor, but I mean, we know that Thor does a ton of damage, so that's not particularly exciting. Overall, this has been a solid hard team. This team also works on brutal as well. And Thorian, because he scales up a little bit with the max HP hits, actually does very, very well on brutal. So honestly, this is probably going to become my brutal team. But I kind of want to compare the doggo with Thor. So let's swap the doggo in here, and we'll be right back and run this on auto and see how that works. All right, so we got the doggo in here as well. So we'll run this team and see how this does with the quick battles. I've got him preset with the same presets I had before. So his A2 is on the high priority. His A3 is on the second priority. He's not going to get all the extra counterattacks, but mostly we're comparing him to Thor. And keep in mind, Thor brings decreased speed. So there's some utility that we're missing. Plus, we're going to be missing out on some of the debuffs the doggo may be able to do because we don't have a Shayak on this team. So let's run this in quick battle and see how this works. And it did not make it to the end of the fight. Very, very unfortunate here. So, yeah, not doing as much damage as Thor is. Maybe I need to resync with this team just a little bit. Thor certainly brings, that decreased speed, possibly makes it a little easier to recover. Let's try this one more time. There we go. So apparently RNG was not with us beforehand. So Thor by himself does more damage than Kro'khad, but still very, very good damage. And again, some of this is because Kro'khad should be scaling up and doing more damage with landing debuffs, and he's not landing the debuffs as consistency as I might like because he doesn't have a lot of accuracy in this particular build. But with Packmaster, he should be absolutely amazing. So I'm actually going to swap out Wallmaster with Packmaster and see how that works on this. And then we will go full on with the doggo built specific team and see how that does. All right, so I've got Shayak set up the same way I did in the other team I showed. We've got Doggo and Shayak here, both ready to go. And let's just see how much the damage scales up in a very similar team. Now, we are going to be missing out on Wallmaster's extra damage, and he was doing a ton of damage. So don't get me wrong, that's going to be missing out on a lot. But let's see how this works when we just swap things out just a little bit. And now Kro'khad with Shayak is doing Thor level damage. And as you'll see here, in fact, he did more than Thor was doing. And we overall, as a team here, did almost the same amount of damage as we did with the Thor team with Wallmaster. And Wallmaster brought an extra ton of damage as well. Now, there's certainly a lot of extra RNG involved in this because, again, Venus is in a Relentless set. Actually, this is the Cursed set one. No, this is the Relentless set one. So Venus in a Relentless set is going to be... No, this is the Cursed set, though. This is the Cursed set one, so it's going to rely on the Cursed landing a bit. The Relentless set one's the one I've got on the other team. So, you know, yeah, there's always going to be a little RNG involved in these. So anyway, as you saw, I actually didn't even run all the way on one of the teams. But, yeah, Doggo is doing absolute beast loads of damage. He's a beast. He is a true beast in Raid Shadow Legends. So let's go run in with the team I made specifically for him, and that way I can keep this team for my Thor team as well, and I'll have 3 really happy Hydra teams. Yay. All right, so here we go. We've got Shayak and we've got the Kro'khad here ready to go. This is my Relentless Venus, not the cursed one. This is going to be my Padraig instead of the Cardiel. They both bring similar level of utility, and it's, you know, it's kind of nice to have the cleanse. And of course, with it actually makes sense to pair with what's her name, Duchess right here. And then of course I've got mostly all of the provoking I'm going to need with my Necmo, especially with the ally attacks happening occasionally. And honestly, I should be cycling through the heads pretty regularly enough where I'm not going to need a ton of provoking. So this is going to be good enough. So let's make this run and see what happens. Ooh, wow. So in the dedicated team here for him, this again, good team overall. You know, Venus is bringing some decent damage with the burns. That's good utility as well. Kro'khad basically bringing all the irresistible debuffs, keeping everyone healing. And in fact, look at all the healing he was doing, although a lot of that's based off the leech that he was getting from, you know, damage he's doing on that. Because Necmo is also bringing some leech. You notice he doesn't actually do that much healing. It's all based off of whatever damage they were doing, other than Padraig, who is actually bringing some actual healing to the game. So you can certainly see Padraig being very helpful there as well. The most damage we've seen so far, Kro'khad doing 248 million damage, and full auto, hit the turn limit, easy to use, and really amazing with Shayak. And without Shayak, he does a good job in Hydra. He will be a good damage dealer for people that need a damage dealer in Hydra. Is he going to be this insane without Shayak? Probably not, but he's going to be a good damage dealer on your team regardless. You know, and there's some fun things you can certainly do with Shayak as well because of all this extra damage he does, because a lot of those extra attacks, because of Shayak's kit. You could certainly put Shayak in some stone skin as well as Kro'khad in some stone skin and build them for PvP, and a very, very fun kit as well. But I'm very happy with this key, and I'm very happy with this dog. So there you have it, my guide to Kro'khad the Throatripper. He has one huge glaring flaw. He's not a cat. Outside of that, you need Packmaster to really unlock his full potential, but the dude does a good job at doing damage, brings useful debuffs to the team, especially if you build him properly for a team without Shayak, which is, you know, make sure he has enough accuracy for everything. He is a really good champion. Normally, somebody can bring value to any account, even if you don't have the Packmaster. But if you have the Packmaster, he is one of the best damage dealing combos, especially for a full auto team. Now, I could probably min-max my team significantly more, and I'm certainly going to play with better teams for him, but, you know, I wanted to set up something simple for the video and, you know, run it through and get my first impressions with him. He is certainly going to be keeping all this gear. I'm going to be using this dude for quite a while to come because I am finally happy with all 3 of my Hydra teams, which is something I've honestly not been super happy with for a little while. So, you know, that's great. I've got 3 full auto, respectable damage dealing teams. I don't have to run manual for my Titus team. Yes, I can get a Titus team that can do double the damage I did with Kro'khad. But the fact that that takes me an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours to run versus the 15-20 seconds to run that one, say, yeah, that sounds like a good total, and be done with it. You know, there's a lot of value added in simply not having to worry about having a problem with the team. So I think that's absolutely amazing. I'll probably deal with figuring out which of these teams, the Thor team or the Kro'khad team, is going to be a better team for brutal and what's going to be a better team for hard. But I wanted to run the comparisons on hard to start with, just to kind of show you the same base level of difficulty you're going to be for each of the teams. And I was pretty sure that they were all going to make it through, and other than the one error that we had there. So he is a great champion. You certainly could have done worse by, you know, doing this fusion. There's plenty of fusion champions that are nowhere near as good as this dog is, you know, and if you didn't need the dog, well, I still think he's going to be super helpful for you in Orc Faction Wars, because I think he's going to be a mega good damage dealer in hard faction wars. He's going to bring some of the useful abilities such as that leech that are going to be helpful for a lot of other areas as well. He's going to bring the weaken, which is going to be very helpful in that faction as well. And overall, he's just got a lot of really good utility even without the Packmaster. And again, S tier champion with the Packmaster. Great kit, great fusion. Hopefully you've got your doggo. Hey, let me know where you plan on using your doggo. I think he would probably work with a Packmaster team in Chimera as well. I've generally not focused on a lot of Chimera teams, but I think he could do really good with the Packmaster in Chimera as well. The only complaint I have about him with Chimera there is that because you really don't get a lot of chances to get hit, that counterattack ability of his with the Packmaster is going to be significantly underutilized. Plus, a lot of his AoEs don't really matter because they're not as important when you're dealing with a single target boss. But, you know, he's a good damage dealer, and good damage dealers can be used in a lot of different areas depending on where you are in the game. So again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. I love making content like this where I can show you how to use champions, make the best of your champions, and give you clues on building them. And even if you don't have a dog, maybe this helps give you ideas on something you could do in a Hydra team, or maybe help you build another damage dealer out. So I appreciate you all. Have an absolutely amazing day. And until the next video, I am Bront CatHerder.